And don't get me wrong, the LS stuff, you know, is nice, but it's so blah looking. When I see a regular LS, there's so much plastic and it's not an attractive looking motor. For me, when people start making them look better, what do? Well, you take the coils and you relocate them. You put on a regular valve cover, like a small block Chevy. You put a single plane intake on it with, you know, say like a Dominator, you know, EFI on it and all that stuff. So you got your throttle, but you're making it look more like a small block Chevy. This stuff just looked like artwork to me. It just, it's so beautiful. I still like an LS, but not as much as that.
Alright, so we are finally starting on the 55 Bel Air. This thing has been sitting for a long time. From the black car holding it up to the old man's car holding it up, and now we're going to blow the dust off of it, and we're going to stick that bad mamma jamma in it. And I figured I'd give you just a quick little background on the 55. For those of you who are just starting off, checking out the channel, hey, what's going on? Thanks for checking us out. This thing I picked up about 3 years ago in Tucson, or from Tucson, Arizona. I traded a 2012 supercharged VMP, supercharged, had an Odin on it, Mustang, made about 700 wheel. The guy was a Mustang lover. He ended up getting this car and a couple other Mustangs from his late uncle. And the Mustangs he wanted, he didn't want this. So I offered him the Mustang, we did a little trading, poof, I got this. So this, checking the numbers and everything on it, was an original gypsy red with ivory back and red interior, original V8 265 Power Glide car. When I got it, it was this hugger orange and ivory, white, cream, whatever you want to call it. And there was no interior in it. I mean, it was just, it was this, but it's a solid body. There is no aftermarket anything on it. It's the original floors, original trunk, original quarter panels, doors, everything. I mean, this thing is just what you hope to find. So what I did over the past couple of years, and then again I put it on pause, was I mini tubbed it. So it's now got a Goodyear 2912 underneath it. I had ET Mags make me up some wheels that I wanted to do kind of a vintage, you know, 60s, 70s style. It was really hard figuring out, do I want to make a gasser or do I want to make something that reminds you of something you saw like in the 70s, kind of like a Hollywood Nights, American Graffiti type of feel, and that's what I was going for, obviously. So at that point, I'll show you more on the car and kind of where I'm at. So, like I said, I had the twin turboed big block from Steve Morris that we ended up doing that was going in here. And when I did that, you can see how I ended up notching the firewall for it. I had to do some notching on the frame for the Steph pan I had built for it. That was for the alternator, and then you can see where the mid plate is, boom, boom, and then where the motor plate is. Well, what we're going to be struggling with today is going from a big block with a Power Glide to a small block with a Turbo 400. And that is the Turbo 400 that I'm using. We've had this Turbo 400 for probably 10 years. And it's just one that I ended up building a buddy's car. He had this in it, and he ended up having a Rosser transmission built, and he just said, if you guys want it, you can have it. So who doesn't want a Turbo 400? So at that point, we just put it on the back burner, and it was one of those, you know, either Dad will use it or I'll use it, or one of us is going to use it. So that is going to get, you know, all the bells and whistles, trans brake, all that stuff to be able to handle the 800 horse blown small block. So with this, what we're doing today is I just got done cutting out the cross member, the transmission cross member that was for the Power Glide. I'll show you that. That was this booger here. So I ended up cutting that guy out. So that's out of the car now. But beforehand, originally, I had a 496 in this with a Turbo 400. With a kit going down, it made like 730 horse, and the plan was to get this thing to run like mid to high nines. And that was always the original plan. Twin turbo motor worked out to where I had that built for a 70 split bumper Camaro. Sold the car, still had the motor, and it was like, hey, let's throw it in the 55.
So I put it in here, and then I sold that motor, and then got the blown small block, and I kind of came back to my original roots plan of keeping this thing kind of that 70s flavor. So that being said, I still had the cross member and all that stuff from the Turbo 400. I never cut the brackets out. So that I just got done crawling out from underneath, so I got that in. So here's my thoughts. Transmission cross members in. I can still use the mid plate. Now that should technically locate the small block. It should center it, left to right and front to back. And at that point, because I also set the motor back, I think it was 1.5 inches with the big block in it. And I didn't have to really get into the firewall except for that one little spot I showed you. So with the small block, it should still set back a little bit, but I shouldn't have any problems. The big block fit, small block should fit pretty easy. So at that point, what I have to worry about then is making this front motor plate. So having that in, that should lock me in. I should be able to, put a jack up front, maybe like a piece of wood up front, and get everything centered, get it where I need it to be, and then I can start making new brackets here. So this will get cut off, that'll get popped off, and the motor plate that's on that thing originally came from the guy that we traded for. That came out of like a 65 Nova. It's a nice motor plate, but I gotta see if I can get that thing to work. If I can't get it to work, I gotta build a new one. I'm gonna try to get that to work. So that is the goal for this weekend, is to just get this motor and transmission setting in the car and motor plate made, well, the brackets made, and just get it setting in the car. That's the big goal for this weekend. So that's where we're at on the 55. So we're gonna pull this Turbo 400 off, and we're gonna try to mate some things up and start getting it together. So putting a small block Chevy in a 55, you figure, it's no big deal, they just drop right in. Well, the mid plate is a little bit of a hassle trying to move that around that Flaming River rack and pinion. And what was happening was we were hitting the transmission mount in the back, and I wanted to use that to help kind of guide itself in, and it eventually did, but we just had to do just a little bit of manipulating. But all in all, it wasn't too bad. All right, so the motor is just sitting there. It's on the motor plate, it's on the mid plate, and then the transmission cross member, and it's actually a little more sturdy than what we thought it was going to be. She doesn't move. So I'm still going to hook everything up, but I mean, you can see what I mean. But I'm still going to hook that stuff up. Just wanted to throw the scoop on it just to see pretty much what it looks like. I have to do some adjustment. You can see where right now it's like this. I'm going to level it out. I'm going to bring the tail of the transmission up a little bit and kind of level things out a little bit better. It's not awful, but it needs some improvement. But yeah, how does that not look good? Yes, there's bigger, badder. We'll do a turbocharged LS. Do a blah, 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 blah. Sorry. That and a 55 Chevy just looks right.
What's the name of this car again?
I don't know. It might be Falfa.
Falfa?
It might be Falfa.
That doesn't make sense. What's that?
I don't know. For you guys out there who don't know what Falfa is, you might have to look that up. All I'll say is American Graffiti. So, yeah, she's looking good. So tomorrow I'm closing it up for today. We got a football game for William to do. It's his last one, senior year. And getting home for that, getting a workout in. So like I said, making my way home. And my boy's got his possible last drum major for the band and for the varsity football team. This is for the conference game for his high school. And he's a senior this year, so me and the wife are going to make our way down and go check that out. And if they do win it, though, they end up winning the conference. And then at that point, there's a possibility that the first playoff game for the state championships will be at home. So there's always that possibility that he might have one more of these. But cleaning up, going to go home, do a little weightlifting, and she and I are going to make our way out to that football game. Nice little break from working on the hot rods.
day 2. So what I ended up doing was I just got back from the other shop and I ended up making up one of these. This is 2 by 2 3/4 1/2-inch thick steel. And what I ended up doing last night before I left, we got the motor in the car, obviously, and the motor's actually sitting a little tipped. It's just tipped slightly. And this is going to go in between the polyurethane mount and the transmission crossmember. What I did was I ended up running longer bolts, and I slowly drew the bolts out, and I let the front nose of the motor come down. You can see I still got wood put on there just as a safety precaution that I didn't want it to tip too far. And we kept going, and once we got it set, I checked my pinion angle of where I was at here to where I'm at on the rear end. Now I had the rear end and all this already set up on the twin turbo motor. So I knew I was really close here. I was at 1 degree. So once I lined this up, it ended up changing because the pitch just changed on it. I don't know if it's because it's a Turbo 400 and it's longer than a Glide, you know, and the slight tip, you know, made it even more. I'm not sure. You guys hit me in the comments. You guys might be able to tell me on that one. But what I also noticed was, and you can see it here, where it's tipped. It's noticeably tipped. So once we went to a 1/2 inch, it leveled itself out pretty good. I got within still being at 1 degree, and I thought, man, this is the sweet spot. So this is what I'm going to throw in there. So I can't see a problem with putting this in there. Also, I ended up making some pieces, or I got some extra sheet metal from the other shop. This is, what? It's like 112 wall, 2 inch wide. I got 2 inch, 1.5, and 1. That is also going to be for making up the motor plate mount that'll go onto the roll cage and all that, and I'll show you that in a second. So first things first, I want to put that in and make sure that it comes back to where we initially had it last night. So let's go put that thing in.
Funny part is, I think I was putting that drill at its limitation, because trying to drill through 1/2 inch thick steel, that drill was moving all over the place. It wanted to turn on me, and man, I wish we had the big stand-up drills like what we have at the other shop, but you got to make do with what you got. Better than being in the vise with a handheld drill.
I'm gonna make sure I'm not cross-threading this guy, because it started going in a little hard. And it should not be going in that way. There we go. There we go. Hee hee! It's thumbs up on my side, but it's probably thumbs down on your side. So, as you can see what kind of room I got in here. Woo! None at all. The joys of having a big chest trying to slide underneath the car. It's not fun. So let's go take a look and see how this thing is. Give me about 10 minutes to get out from underneath the car, though. So, there is what we're dealing with. You can still see how it's a little tipped up. Oh, let's see if, you know, you can do some make-believe body lines and all that. You can use the strut bar if you want for a nice straight line. It's still slightly tipped up, but it's way better if you guys, well, for you guys, it would just be maybe a minute or two ago. For me, it was yesterday. But of what I'm looking at, that is noticeably better. It's more how it should be. And again, with that setup, when I checked it yesterday, I'm about a degree and a half up, which I can make up for still. There's plenty of adjustment in the back end of the car, so I'll just do that. But that is way better, way better. So now I'm going to start working on that front motor mount. Well, I'm sorry, front engine plate. And now I can start locking that in. But I wanted to get the motor sitting right. I didn't want it perfectly dead flat, because no motor is perfectly dead flat, plus the fact that the car is probably going to sit with the front end down a little bit, and then that scoop would be pointing down. With what I'm looking at right now, you know, with what I'm seeing right now, I'm sure you guys would agree that with the front nose down just a little bit, that's probably going to sit dead level. So I'm happy with it. I am happy with how that's looking now. And yeah, like I said, I got plenty of room around everything and all that. So next step is going to be right there. So I'm going to go get some food. Yeah, because it's 2 o'clock. I'm going to go get some food. I had a couple of guys swing by and we kind of BS for a little bit. So I'm a little back time-wise on this stuff. So, but I'm hungry. I'm hungry.
I cut off the old brackets with a Sawzall that were for the big block Chevy. I should have been doing this before I decided to put the motor in the car, but I was just so excited to put the motor in the car that I kind of neglected this portion. That's why I've covered everything up, but do it beforehand. Oh no, it's officially here. Frickin' frost, man. Look at that crap. Ugh. Cold weather has shown up. Ugh. It's here. Ugh. Officially in Michigan, but granted it's almost November, so it is what it is. It felt like it ended up taking probably 5 minutes for the heat and everything to actually work correctly in the pickup truck. This is our first frost of the year, so yippee, always excited about that one. Yeah. But it still turned out to be a very beautiful morning, always a nice ride in when you get to work on your hot rod, so just getting ready to do the next steps here and finally get that cherry picker away from the motor and get that motor plate all locked down, ready to go. Oh yeah, it's good times. Now, how is that just not pretty? I know for you guys it's been like probably 30 seconds or a minute. It's been a full day for me to come into the barn and see this sitting here waiting for me to work on. You guys, this has been something I've been wanting to do for a very, very long time. I mean, ever since I was drawing in elementary school, I would draw stuff like this. This is my first 671 blower combination, and it's just one of those things where I don't know. I came in, it's a beautiful morning, sun's out. It's just a gorgeous day, and I came walking into this, and it was like, yeah. I've driven 4-second eighth miles. I've been 6-second quarter miles. Done top sportsmen, have multiple 1,000 horsepower combinations, and blah 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 blah. I come into this. It's an 800 horse blown small block. Is it anything crazy? It's nice. It's good, but just seeing that, the Bel Air, all that stuff, I just how is this just not pretty? And don't get me wrong, the LS stuff, is nice. But it's so blech looking. When I see a regular LS, there's so much plastic and it's not an attractive looking motor. For me, when people start making them look better, what do? Well, you take the coils and you relocate them. You put on a regular valve cover, like a small block Chevy. You put a single plane intake on it with, say like a Dominator, EFI on it and all that stuff. So you got your throttle, but you're making it look more like a small block Chevy. This stuff just looked like artwork to me. It just, it's so beautiful. I still like an LS, but not as much as that. I'm sorry, that right there, the intimidation factor of, the big blower sticking out of the hood. I mean, this is multi-generational love here from guys that are, my father's age and, 60s and 70s to, guys that are like me that are in their 30s and 40s. Even to the younger kids, they look at it and go, man, that's a Toretto blower sticking out of that thing. It's just one of those things, maybe not with that accent, but it's just one of those things where I walked in, I'm like, God, that is just sexy. I just, mwah. How do you not like that? How does that not just like, get you moving? If it just doesn't swing, then I'm sorry, man, you got a problem. You're on the wrong channel then at that point. Hope you excuse the mess here. But this is just going to give you guys a little bit of a tech tip. Say you don't have a hole saw, you don't know how to do notching, like on your roll cages, or I want to notch this to be able to go on to some 1 1/4 inch material. That's what I'm doing on the 55 right now. This is 1 inch 83 wall. This is 120 wall, 1 1/4. Now, how can I notch it, give it that really nice tight fit? So when I weld it, it looks good. Okay, all you need is a cutoff wheel, a flap wheel, or a sand wheel, whatever you want to call them. We call them flap wheels. And at that point, this is all you got to do. So let's say we take a chunk of the 1 1/4, and what I'm going to do is on this piece here, I got 1 inch. I got the 1 1/4 now. Haha. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece here, and I'm going to run it up and down on this guy. So I'm going to run it up and down on this, right, to where this upper edge is on this piece of 1 inch on this far left and far right side at the very tips. Like if you were thinking like fangs, like the very tips where you're going to make your cut. At that point, set it up and just trace it out. Now, go a little shorter than what you think. Because of the reason you're going to cut it with the cutoff wheel and then you're going to clean it up with the flap wheel, that extra little bit that you've left on there, you're going to be able to cut it up, sand it down with that flap wheel. Now, I already know how far I got to go on these. I've done this a bunch of times. The main trick of this is the angle of your cutoff wheel. Now, what do I mean by that? Okay. It's going to be the angle, I'm going to exaggerate it, the angle of the cutoff wheel. When I do like 1 5/8, like roll cage stuff, that angle is going to be different than what I do on this. Because once you start tracing out your shapes, you're going to start to get a feel for how much you have to tip it. You either have to make a bigger, I'd say a smiley face, but it's actually a frown. You'd have to make a bigger frown. Well, doing that to make a bigger frown, you got to be more straight upright. You start doing this, you're just going to just take a little nip of the tip off. So you're just going to do that. What you have to do is you got to start figuring out your angle. That trace is going to help you. So I'm going to give you a little quickie one here. Now, at that point, also, when you're marking it, hopefully you're doing it right. You actually set it up on the car, mark where you need it, lay it flat, all that. That's saying that you got all this stuff correct. All right. So we got those little ones out. Okay. Just getting the burrs off. Now, at that point, I should be able to take it and knock all the dust out. But you can see that's nice and tight. That is very easy to weld onto. There's both sides. That is super easy to weld to. You'll have a great weld, all that. Nice thing is, that locked in, I'm at a dead nuts 90. It's very, very simple to do. So that's what she looks like, just tacked together. I just got, a little tack there, one on the other side. I tacked it up towards the front. I just don't want to put a bunch of heat into it and warp it. So I want to make sure that that thing is just nice, dead straight. And then I'm going to put everything together. And like I said, I'm debating on if I'm going to go from here to here, because that'll be triangulated that way, or if I'm going to go from here down to here. So I'm going to run a couple of bars, see what I like, and see what's going to fit comfortably. But yeah, that's your first stages. And like I said, with those notches, you can see what I mean by it fits nice and tight. So hopefully that notch little tutorial ended up helping you guys out. So now I'm going to figure out that next portion. So let's grab some more stock and get it figured out. Okay, so I decided to go with option A, which was my initial thought of just doing a triangulation off the single bar, not going off the actual strut bar. So now I'm just welding everything up for good, and I will show you how it looks here in just 1 second. All right, so that's where we ended up. I ended up just doing a triangulation coming off of that bar. So you can see where she ain't gonna move. you know, for what this is, and even if I build a little bit higher horsepower in the future, you know, say we go to 1,000 horsepower or something, this ain't going nowhere. So, like I said, I just ended up doing that, triangulating it, got my welds done. We're all good there. And like I said, that's 120 wall, 1 inch, or no, 180 wall. That's right. So next thing I'm thinking about is if I'm going to make these side pieces, and I've already chopped them out, these guys. Let me show you what I was thinking. Was having these on here, here, you know, along my edge. That's why I have a little bit of a lip out there, to have these on here. And then what I was thinking was just taking them and slightly tipping them. So as you move the motor back, it kind of self-guides you. Thing that I'm thinking of is that when we're putting this motor in, getting around the steering, and you can see how I made the steering on this thing, getting around the steering with that mid plate is a pain in the butt. You have to take the motor and you have to like shove it all the way over to this side to get it to miss the, you know, your actually steering shaft, and then it kind of clunks itself in. Well, if I put this stuff on, is it going to be in the way? That's what I got to figure out. Because if it's going to be in the way and I can't move this thing side to side because I capped it in on both sides, well, then at that point, I basically just screwed myself. So it's trying to figure out, do I leave it alone the way it is? You know, it's nice and sturdy. But the problem is when you're trying to put a motor in with a motor plate and you're not on engine or you're not on engine, not engine stands. What am I thinking of? Engine mounts. Ooh, apparently the gas has got to me. But when you're not on engine mounts, it's a little bit harder to do. You know, trying to line your bolts and things like that up. That's why you make that little tray underneath. Well, if I put the tray on there, it's just welded off flat. You put the weight of the motor on there, it's just going to bend it down. So having those side pieces on would strengthen it up. So you can see what I mean by that. So it's either leave it alone and, you know, do it the way it is, or put those side pieces on. And I'm not quite sure if I should spend the extra time putting them on or not. Why don't you guys hit me down in the comments? Let me know what you would do. I put the alternator on, wanted to see how that was going to fit. I'm hitting the frame, as you can tell, right there and down below. So I'm going to have to figure something out on that. Old man's just cleaning up from the explosion of the Camaro, so he's just cleaning up parts and stuff like that on that. But put the water meth kit on there, put the pump on there as well, and I wanted to see if the pump was going to have room or clearancing issues there. And as you can tell, that looks pretty good. And we're not sticking out too far. It's actually just behind the blower, so I don't see this being a problem. I think that'll be okay. And then I also have, I'll show you these, instead of regular breathers that are on the valve covers, it's these tanks. So these guys would, you know, thread onto your valve cover, and then you actually have these overflow tanks in that sense, which is, it's kind of neat. I've never ran it before, but it's kind of neat. So I'll try those on next week, see how that stuff fits. Obviously, the big thing today was just to get the motor in the car, get the engine plate installed on it, ready to rock and roll. So all of that's in. Motor's in, not for good, but motor's in. Next couple of steps will be headers. I think I'm going to do, I don't know, I think I might do a set of fender welds. And it's a stall style pattern. So you can see there that it's a stall style. So I think I'm going to run probably, you can go 1 7/8, but I think I'm going to build a set of like 2-inch headers for it. That way, if I do decide in the future to build a nastier short block instead of this 370, I go to like a 421 or something like that, and I want to make 1,000 horse, the headers and the exhaust will work. Make them once, make them universal. So at that point, I am done for the day. Just wrapping up. Just wanted to say thank you guys for checking this out. Don't forget to hit that share, like, subscribe. Tell your friends, tell your grandma. She might have rode in one of these things. But at that point, I will catch you guys later. Till we meet again, my friends. See ya.